Good evening. I want to welcome you here for this webinar on MDOT State Long Range Transportation Plan Development. I am Bradley Charlo, the Project Manager for the 2040 State Long Range Plan Reaffirmation Document. Other presenters today include Polly Kent, the Intermodal Policy Division Administrator, Niles Anowin, a Transportation Planner within the Intermodal Policy Division, and Kyle Haller, the Assistant Project Manager for the State Long Range Plan. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Please make sure that your phones are on mute until the question and answer period. If you do not have a mute button, please press *6. Also, please do not put your phones on hold during this presentation. Otherwise, we will be hearing your music or whatever is occurring there. Our agenda today will be to discuss the purpose of this webinar, to discuss what the State Long Range Plan is, and to explain the timeline for this update. In addition, we will discuss our vision and goals for the 2040 plan. We will identify key trends and changes to practices in business, and we will also discuss within each of our goals some accomplishments on how MDOT has been implementing the vision and the goals since the 2035 plan was updated in 2012. Finally, we will allow for an opportunity for questions and answers. The purpose of this evening's webinar is to provide a brief overview of the State Long Range Plan and the reaffirmation effort. It is also to get information from you to update the State Long Range Plan based on changes in the last 5 years. We will also offer information about the comment solicitation process, and we will engage in an extended question and answer session with the participants here this evening. Your input will be used in the following fashions. Your input will help shape the development of the draft revised plan. It will be included in the summary of our webinar. It will be included in our consultation reports and will be used as a further future reference point for ongoing consultation with stakeholders, resource agencies, and tribal governments. Now we will discuss an overview of what the State Long Range Transportation Plan is, what it entails, and a discussion of our vision and goals. The State Long Range Plan is a policy-based document that establishes a vision, goals, and objectives for Michigan's transportation system. The State Long Range Transportation Plan sets the policy framework for transportation investment systems. It identifies current and emerging needs for all modes of transportation within the state and sets investment priorities for meeting those needs. The State Long Range Plan is regularly updated or reaffirmed to maintain a minimum 20-year planning horizon. The State Long Range Plan is a required condition of receiving federal aid. This plan includes all entities that MDOT has ownership or jurisdiction over. This is not a plan on all transportation systems in Michigan. To be clear, what this plan will cover includes the following. For the road network, MDOT is responsible for all the interstate, U.S., and M routes throughout Michigan, which includes over 9,600 miles of pavement. In terms of bridges, we have over 4,700 highway, railroad, and pedestrian bridges, as well as we have several carpool parking lots, rest areas, noise barriers, and other non-pavement infrastructure that we are responsible for. There are 665 miles of state-owned railroad lines in Michigan, 4 state-owned airports in Romeo, Linden, Plymouth Canton, and Houghton Lake, and then there are also 4 state-owned intercity intermodal terminals found in Benton Harbor, Detroit, Pontiac, and Southfield. These maps show the state trunk line or the highway network that MDOT is responsible over, as well as the state-owned rail lines in Michigan. Now I'd like to go over a brief history on the State Long Range Plan. Between 2004 and 2007, a full redevelopment of the State Long Range Plan was performed, reestablishing the vision, goals, and objectives, and strategies for implementation. This report included an executive summary and 17 technical reports explaining current trends, strategies, and future directions. This plan had a base year of 2005 and a horizon year of 2030. This was officially known as the 2030 My Transportation Plan. In 2012, this plan was reaffirmed, extending the horizon year to 2035. This plan incorporated an executive summary along with approximately 20 white papers, which provided updates and changes to the 17 technical reports in the 2030 My Transportation Plan. The vision, goals, and objectives remain the same. This plan was officially known as the 2035 My Transportation Plan. Now we are reaffirming this plan once more as we wait for final guidance from the U.S. DOT. This plan will reaffirm the 2030 My Transportation Plan once more while extending the horizon year to 2040. Other MDOT documents that this plan supports are tied to the State Long Range Plan include the Michigan Airport System Plan, the State Freight Plan, the State Rail Plan, the 5-Year Transportation Program, and other project-specific documents. I'm going to spend a few minutes here discussing the Michigan State Freight Plan. This was created in response to the 2012 Federal Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill known as MAP 21. This plan provides an overview of the freight system, including existing assets, system performance, and investments needed to ensure long-term success. The trends outlined in the Michigan Freight Plan include that highway congestion will continue to increase, private sectors will make modal decisions, and the rail intermodal traffic will continue to grow. This plan has been used as a basis across the nation as a very high success story and is currently seen as a best practice. This is our timeline for the development of the 2040 My Transportation Plan. Beginning in August of 2015, the Public Involvement Plan was updated with a 45-day public comment period ending on September 30th, 2015. Currently, the white papers are being updated and being posted onto the website. By the end of February 2016, a completed draft plan will be available for public comment. Between now and then, the individual white papers will be submitted as they are completed. As of now, the Vision White Paper and the Goals, Objectives, and Performance Measures White Paper are already on the website in their draft form. You can offer any comments at any time. From March 1st to March 31st, a 30-day public comment period will be held for people to provide comments on the draft plan. Several public meetings will be held across the state during this month, where we will present the plan and offer opportunities for comments. From April 1st through May 10th, MDOT will incorporate all those comments into the plan, and the final plan will be adopted on May 19th at the State Transportation Commission meeting. As stated earlier, this is a policy document which focuses on establishing a vision for the future, identifying goals and objectives for achieving that vision, and the development of strategies for implementing that vision. This document also identifies decision principles for applying these strategies. This plan does not go to the project level. This plan provides the framework for what MDOT then implements as the call for projects for the 5-year transportation program, which is updated annually. This here is our vision for the 2040 Transportation Plan. Michigan's 2040 transportation system is a safe, efficient, resilient, and integrated multimodal system and serves as the foundation of the state's economic vitality and will sustain quality of life for its residents. Transportation providers throughout the state will work together to address the system's diverse needs. The entire system will be maintained, preserved, and protected as one of the state's most important physical assets. This was drawn initially from the long-range vision for transportation in Michigan from the December 2003 to 2004 Transportation Summit called Connecting Michigan. This vision has been reaffirmed to be extended to 2040. Extensive input and advice was sought through the Economic Advisory Group, stakeholders, consultation with tribal governments and resource agencies, public meetings, and surveys. Key strategies that will help Michigan achieve its transportation goals are to continue to follow the corridors of highest significance, to integrate the transportation system, implementation of context-sensitive solutions, which will be discussed in more detail in a few minutes. We'll continue to avoid, minimize, or mitigate for adverse impacts, to identify appropriate funding, and to measure performance for all modes. Since 2006, MDOT has been utilizing customer surveys. The attitudes and perception surveys were used to get input from Michigan residents as to the goals, objectives, and vision for transportation in Michigan for the 2030 Transportation Plan. Since its adoption, MDOT continues to use these surveys to monitor how we are doing in reaching these goals and objectives, as well as the importance and satisfaction with the transportation system. The Attitude and Perception Survey outlined the various goals in MDOT's long-range vision for an integrated transportation system in Michigan. Residents were asked about these goals in 2011, and at that time reaffirmed the need for the long-range vision that had been developed 5 years earlier. The 2015 survey did the same thing. We heard that 94% feel the vision is very or somewhat important. We also found that Michigan residents are quite divided over which specific goal is the most important, suggesting that a variety of goals are necessary for a comprehensive vision for the entire state. We are now going to get into a discussion of our 4 state long-range plan goals, and as we're discussing each of these goals, we will discuss various accomplishments or ways that MDOT has been implementing these goals since the 2035 update. The 4 goals that we're going to discuss are stewardship, safety and security, system improvement, and efficient and effective operation. I am now going to turn it over to Polly Kent, who will discuss the first of these goals.
Thank you, Brad. The intent of the stewardship goal is to preserve transportation system investments, to protect the environment, and to use public resources in the most responsible manner. And as an example of stewardship, I would point out that there are numerous partnerships that MDOT undertakes with various state agencies. These are just a few that are highlighted here. Michigan State Police, we work with them on the Highway Safety Plan, and of course they help patrol our work zones to keep the contractors safe. With the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, we worked with them to develop a conservation plan for a project on I-75 in Monroe County, where the highway passes close to Lake Erie. Lake Erie, of course, has experienced water quality concerns and other stresses related to land use and transportation, and the intent of that conservation plan was to help minimize those impacts. We've also worked with the Department of Natural Resources to make improvements on Belle Isle, and we work with them on trails, development of trails. And finally, with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, we have worked with them to help identify and minimize the transportation impacts on threatened and endangered species. The safety and security goal continues MDOT's long-standing commitment to build, maintain, and operate the safest transportation system possible. MDOT continues to integrate security and protective measures into its transportation infrastructure, and preparedness and mitigation measures provided by MDOT, they provide for actions during all kinds of hazards, whether man-made or natural incidents that directly or indirectly affect the traveling public or MDOT resources, including the transportation infrastructure. And just as an example of safety and security accomplishments, one of the recent accomplishments in this area includes the installation of cable median barriers and centerline rumble strips along state trunk lines. Since the completion of the cable median barrier installations, crossover crash rates have been reduced by 87%. And since the completion of centerline rumble strips on non-divided highways, the number of crashes for all types has been cut in half on these corridors. The goal of system improvement is to modernize and enhance the transportation system to improve mobility and accessibility. And this emphasizes various areas where MDOT can either make direct investments or support and encourage investments by others to improve the system, to modernize it by expanding or connecting the system to support economic growth, and by linking transportation investment to values in local communities. As an example of that system improvement, I want to talk a little more about the context-sensitive solutions approach that Brad mentioned earlier.
Holly,
yeah.
People don't have it on mute and we're hearing background noise and talking.
Well, I guess I would just like to remind everybody, please put your phones on mute.
If you do not have a mute button, press *6.
Thanks, Brad. Well, the primary means that MDOT uses to implement to help integrate the transportation system is through the context-sensitive solutions process. This is a collaborative, interdisciplinary approach to developing transportation projects. It involves a dialogue with local agencies and stakeholders early in the project's planning phase, and involves a cooperative spirit and an awareness of community interests to help achieve the ultimate goal, which is a project that fits their surroundings while effectively serving transportation needs. In 2012, the State Transportation Commission also enacted a Complete Streets policy. MDOT has since then been working with the Complete Streets Advisory Council. We worked with them to develop that recommended language for the Commission's policy, and also to provide sample local policies that are posted on the Commission's website for local use. More recently, the multimodal development and delivery effort that MDOT has undertaken involved a comprehensive internal effort to examine the operational needs of all modes that use highway right-of-way, cars, trucks, buses, bicycles, pedestrians, and so on. Based on that analysis, MDOT plans over the next few years to update its engineering and other guidance to consider those impacts and the interactions of all modes. The goal is to provide greater flexibility and to ensure that all modes are considered and safely served where appropriate, based on the context and the function of the highway. And finally, MDOT has an Americans with Disabilities Act transition plan, which we are acting on with every project, and we continue to make progress in that regard. Now I'd like to turn it back to Brad.
Thank you. Now we will discuss several enhancements in the area of transit. First of all is the development of the Regional Transit Authority in Southeast Michigan. This is comprised of 4 counties, Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, and Washtenaw, as well as the city of Detroit. This group has been charged with developing a single master transit plan for the entire region, also the implementation of regional funding initiatives, and the selection of service options for major corridors based on alternative analysis recommendations. The Woodward Avenue corridor between Detroit and Pontiac has been studied, and they have selected bus rapid transit as the preferred option. Future work is being analyzed on that corridor currently. Also, currently underway are studies along the Michigan Avenue corridor between Detroit and Ann Arbor, and the Gratiot Avenue corridor between Detroit and Mount Clemens. MDOT is in support of all these local initiatives. Grand Rapids is the home to the first bus rapid transit corridor in Michigan that's in place already. This opened up in 2014, and another corridor is currently in development in Grand Rapids as we speak. Other corridor studies that are also being studied include bus rapid transit options in Lansing, as well as the I-75 corridor between Bay City and Detroit. In addition, for the last year and a half, they've been laying down rail on M1 Woodward in Detroit to provide a rail line between the downtown district and the Midtown district and the Arts district near Wayne State University. Michigan's Intercity bus program consists of 5 contracted routes providing operation and capital funding to routes in the northern lower peninsula and the upper peninsula that the marketplace has abandoned. In addition to these contracted routes, capital funding is provided as a subsidy for all routes in the southern portion of the lower peninsula. Ridership along these contracted routes has decreased by 10% since 2012, as well as the increase in subsidies has increased by $300,000 since 2012. In 2014, MDOT partnered with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation to save an intercity bus route between Ironwood, Michigan and Duluth, Minnesota, from ceasing daily operations. Through this effort, they were also able to provide and develop a second route scheduled to start in January of 2016 from Escanaba, Michigan to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There are also enhancements currently underway at various multimodal facilities in Michigan, including Dearborn and East Lansing. In the area of intercity passenger rail, lately MDOT acquired 135 miles of rail line between Kalamazoo and Dearborn in December 2012 from Norfolk Southern Railway. MDOT is updating this corridor currently for accelerated speeds up to 110 miles per hour. Amtrak will operate and maintain this line. Norfolk Southern Rail will continue freight service along this line. And MDOT went through a phase of rebuilding this corridor with federal and state funding, and now we are moving into a true asset management treatment of this corridor. And now I want to turn it over to Kyle Haller, who's going to discuss our non-motorized.
Thank you, Brad. The United States Bicycle Route System is a national network of regionally and nationally significant bike routes, spanning multiple states that is designated through the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, or AASHTO. The purpose of the U.S. Bike Route System, or USBR, is to facilitate travel between states on routes identified as suitable for long-distance cycling. It links urban, suburban, and rural areas through a mixture of state highways, county roads, local roads, and shared-use pathways. Michigan currently has 3 designated U.S. bike routes. U.S. Bike Route 10, which is our most recent route, connects St. Ignace to Iron Mountain and Michigan's Upper Peninsula. U.S. Bike Route 20, an east to west route that connects Marine City with Ludington. U.S. Bike Route 35, a north-south route that runs from Michigan-Indiana border to Sault Ste. Marie. The U.S. Bike Route System supports bicycle tourism, livability, placemaking, and multimodal transportation options. I'll now hand the presentation over to Niall Zanelin.
Thank you. The final goal of the long-range plan is the goal of efficient and effective operations. This goal is to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the transportation system and transportation services, and to expand MDOT's coordination and collaboration with partners. As a department, MDOT strives to operate efficiently and effectively in order to get the greatest possible performance from Michigan's existing transportation assets and future system improvements. Examples of these efficient and effective operations include the work being done in the field of connected and automated vehicles. This is a rapidly developing and changing field, and as a result, MDOT is partnering with major universities and the world's major auto manufacturers to prepare for a future that may look very different than today. MDOT is also working with the federal government and seeking out grant opportunities to improve the safety and communications with roadway users as a result of this technology. The second example is active traffic management. ATM involves the use of intelligent transportation systems and other techniques to help improve the operations of existing roads and highways. This concept involves the use of paved shoulders during peak traffic periods. It's a much more efficient use of available pavement. It manages rush hour congestion without the cost and environmental impacts of adding a new traffic lane. An example of this is the US 23 North project, North Van Arbor, which is expected to be implemented in 2017. This would be essentially traffic driving in an unused shoulder during peak rush hour times. That's the efficient and effective operations. I'm going to turn it over to Brad.
Okay. So a little summary on some of the supporting documents for the State Long Range Plan. This 2040 plan will look very similar to the 2035 plan, where it will consist of an executive summary, multiple white papers, and the public involvement plan. The 2040 white papers are updates to inputs and data from the original 2030 My Transportation Plan technical reports, as well as the 2035 State Long Range Plan white papers. All documents for the State Long Range Plan will be made available on MDOT's public website. Draft white papers will be posted online as they are completed. I mentioned earlier the draft vision white paper, as well as the draft goals, objectives, and performance measures paper are already on the website. In addition, our final public involvement plan, which was adopted at the end of September, is on our website. 30-day public comment period for the entire draft State Long Range Plan will be March 1st to March 31st, 2016. The website where all of this information can be found, as well as links to the former Long Range Plans, will be found at www.michigan.gov/SLRP. I am now going to turn it over to Polly Kent, who's going to discuss some of the funding changes going on.
Thanks again, Brad. Well, the good news is that the legislature last week passed a package of bills that will provide more state investment for transportation, and Governor Snyder signed them on Tuesday. Some of the highlights of these bills, starting on January 1st, 2017, user fees will be increased. These are gas taxes and registration fees to generate approximately $600 million a year. The fuel taxes will increase to 26.3 cents per gallon, and the registration fees will go up about 20%. There'll also be an additional electric car fee of $100 per year, or $30 a year for plug-in hybrids, to ensure that all highway users are paying their fair share. But that funding will flow through the existing Act 51 formula, which includes funding for transit. Starting in October 1st, 2019, there will be portions of general funds shifted to transportation, $150 million in 2019, $325 million in 2020, and $600 million in 2021. Those general fund revenues would be distributed by the three-way formula only to road agencies, not including transit. Other highlights include a requirement for warranties for projects that are over $2 million by all agencies, and indexing the gas tax increase to inflation after 2022. In total, by 2021, the package will provide another $1.2 billion in state funding for investment in transportation. On the federal front, MAP 21, which Brad mentioned earlier, moving ahead for progress in the 21st century, is the authorization bill that governs United States federal surface transportation funding. MAP 21 authorized funding and programs for fiscal years 2013 and 2014, and it's been extended on a short-term basis several times since then, while Congress seeks agreement on a new long-term transportation funding bill. It's currently extended until November 20th, which is next week, so we're all hoping that Congress will do yet another short-term extension to keep that going while they work on a long-term bill. The good news here is that the long-term bill, both houses of Congress have passed their version of a long-term bill, and it seems they're going to refer those to conference committee, so it seems likely that we could have a long-term transportation bill at the federal level in the months to come. None of the changes proposed by those separate new draft bills deviate very greatly from the reforms that were included in MAP 21. So we have something to look forward to. Now I'm going to turn it back to Kyle Haller to talk about some more recent changes and trends.
Thank you, Polly. In 2013, the governor introduced the Regional Prosperity Initiative. This established a common set of geographic borders for all state agencies. In 2015, MDOT realigned its 7 regions in accordance with the new Regional Prosperity Initiative, and its boundaries has been established. You can see on the map up there. Michigan has experienced socioeconomic trends in which population, the number of households, the number of jobs are all rising at a very moderate level. With the baby boomer population hitting retirement age, we are experiencing an aging population of the state. With an aging population, household sizes are smaller. The number of households and jobs are growing at a faster rate than the population itself. Also, jobs are shifting from manufacturing to service-oriented occupations. Overall vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, has increased since 2009 at a very moderate rate. Commercial VMT is growing at a higher rate than passenger VMT. Passenger and commercial VMT are both expected to rise through 2040. With the new revenue package, MDOT is still assessing future pavement conditions and developing strategies to best meet the system's needs. There have been trends toward creation of sustainable communities by incorporating context-sensitive solutions, providing multiple modes of transportation, and preparing for alternative energy sources. I will now turn the presentation back over to Brad Charlo to discuss future directions and next steps.
Thank you, Kyle. First of all, in 2016, a new Michigan Airport Systems Plan will be developed. This will be an update and expanded plan when compared to the current Michigan Airport Systems Plan of 2008. It will be developed in 2016 with approval by the Michigan Aeronautics Commission in January 2017. The plan will look at recent changes to the use of airports and the expected changes over the next 10 years. There will also be a more robust look at economic impacts of aviation on Michigan and local areas. In addition, MDOT will continue to further integrate the transportation modes, as discussed earlier. We will also continue the implementation of the performance measures and MAP 21 performance targets as they are released. There will be the integration of a transportation asset management plan, which will be based on a tiered effect on the national highway system. There will also be further guidance on active traffic management as these types of strategies are further implemented within the state. Also, the implementation of new air quality standards will be put into place. Currently, updates to the national ambient air quality standards will result in different areas where the air quality will be in non-attainment. What we mean by non-attainment means that there are higher levels of carbon monoxide in place than what the EPA would prefer, Environmental Protection Agency. Transportation plans will all have to be revised to respond to these changes once they are released. Now, we would like to ask you some questions that we would encourage your input on now. 5 questions that I have here to ask include, what do you want to share about your agency or your organization's activity since 2012? Do you have any new changes that you feel would affect transportation planning? If nothing new, do you have any issues or concerns about how the existing programs are or the coordination issues? And in addition, what new programs or initiatives do you have that you might identify as significant or potential impacts affected by transportation policy? And then, are there any local issues or concerns that you are currently dealing with that you would like to discuss? Now, you may unmute your phones and start asking questions. We are here to provide the answers to the best of our ability. I would also ask that if you have a question that you could write it in the chat pod as well for our documentation purposes. So we're here ready to listen.
If you don't feel comfortable asking a question over the phone, you may type it in.
Yeah. You may type any questions in the chat pod below.
While we're waiting for questions, is there anything else that we want to remind the public of? Are there upcoming meetings or?
Yes, I will also say a few things here. Thank you, Holly. We will have a recording of this webinar available in a few weeks on our website at www.michigan.gov/SLRP. We currently have on the website a copy of this presentation as well, if you would like to download that at your leisure. We also will have a survey that will be put out on this website here as well. You can find that survey. I'm going to copy the link to that survey into the chat pod now, so that you can answer, you can address. We certainly like your feedback in regards to that. The survey will be placed on our website through November 20th, which is a week from tomorrow, and we encourage any comments or feedback on presentation or as well as on any of the information that was discussed. I see a question coming in. Just a reminder that all the documents for the State Long Range Plan and any related materials can be found online at our website at www.michigan.gov/SLRP. Draft white papers may be reviewed and commented on as they become available. Initial review dates for the white papers in their entirety will be January 4th to February 19th, 2016. Official public comment period for the completed draft 2040 plan will be March 1st to 31st, 2016. Thank you, Tom, for your commentary. Appreciate that. We look forward to working with you. One question we do have now, are there areas of the MAP 21 performance measures where MDOT would like to focus more on?
That's a great question, and I would say that FHWA has been putting out guidance on the various performance measures over the course of the last couple years, and almost none of that guidance is final yet. I think they're expecting to finalize one of the rules in December. So this is a sort of long-term effort. We anticipate that as they finalize the rules, then we'll be able to better implement those performance measure requirements. But this is not something that's going to happen overnight. When you look at the dates in F21, we're looking at a 5 to potentially 7-year rollout. And that's why this upcoming bill that Congress is working on could be so vital, because it would be great to have a long-term 6 years worth of predictable funding at the federal level while we finish implementing these MAP 21 performance measures. We haven't had 6 years of predictability for over a decade, so that's it'll be very nice to have that, and then to really focus on performance as the federal rules are finalized. I hope that answers your question. Perhaps not.
There will be also public meetings held around the state during the comment period? Or?
Yes, just as a reminder, that during the month of March, we will have several public meetings held across the state with a minimum of 2 to 3 in each of our MDOT regions. So we will look at providing comment periods during those meetings, as well as to just have any kinds of discussions you'd like to have with us. As a follow-up question here we have, are there specific MPOs that you work closely with in regards to MAP 21 targets?
And Harriet, I would say that we are working with all of the MPOs as information becomes available about the MAP 21 targets, but we are really not there yet. We are still waiting for the federal guidance to be finalized with regard to the measures themselves, let alone identifying targets. And really, this is not something that's going to be implemented any day now. This is something that's going to take a couple of years to move forward. So, and we will certainly work with all the MPOs as that progress continues.
Once we receive the final proposed rules, states have 18 months to implement those rules, and then we have an additional 6 months to coordinate with our MPOs so that they can develop, either incorporate the state's targets or to implement their own. But this will be a coordinated effort throughout.
And in the meantime, for those who have interest in knowing more about MDOT's performance, we do have, the governor does have a dashboard that people can access through the governor's website related to transportation infrastructure and service. And also MDOT has a dashboard that you can access through MDOT's website that ranks more performance measures. Those are a little more detailed than the measures on the governor's dashboard. And I'm glad to hear that you're hearing the same thing from other state DOTs, Harriet, that we said here tonight. That's great to know.
Do we have any other questions or comments from folks? You're welcome also to unmute your phone if you want to just ask it instead of have to type it in. You're welcome either way. If there are no other questions, I want to thank you all for attending this evening for this webinar. We appreciate your time and effort in listening to us, and we encourage any comments or input from you as we develop this plan. The comments are very valuable to us, and we would like to incorporate those to the best of our ability. Thank you very much, everyone, and I hope you have a good night.
Thank you.